Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a thing that I kind of call a quickie segment where I talk about a lot of tracks, a lot of albums that I haven't talked about recently that I want to talk about, but let me tell you, this quickie, it's been a while since I've done a quickie, since got caught up with South by Southwest stuff and haven't done one since, that was kind of barreling down on me. So this quickie is going to be a longie. So let's get straight down to business, do this as quick as possible. Let's do Earl. Whoa, new Earl track. I actually liked this song more than Chum, and I'm actually pretty excited for Doris. I'm not even lying. I'm not even lying to you. I know everybody says, oh, Anthony Fantano hates Odd Future, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm legitimately interested in what Earl is going to do on this new LP. Because of what he did on Chum, and because of what he did on this new track. In my opinion, not only is Earl a pretty decent rapper, he's a decent rapper, and I think that with these two tracks, he has exemplified that he can choose good beats. But what's even more exciting about these tracks, and just the buildup of this album, is that I feel like Earl is just refreshingly no bullshit. He just wants to make good tracks. He wants to write rhymes that he thinks are interesting. He's not interested in the BS. He's not interested in the drama. He doesn't get bogged down in all the crap and all the just tacky subject matters that to me make so many other Odd Future records boring. As long as he heads down the road that these two tracks that he's dropped so far from this new LP have been going down, then I think Doris is going to be pretty solid. Sure, his laid-back, kind of monotone flow is not going to be for everybody, that's kind of his style, but I actually think he sounds pretty nice doing it. Next, Savage's She Will. Awesome female post-punk band from the UK. They dropped a few tracks last year that I loved. This new track of theirs is great as well. Maybe I'm not loving it as much as the previous material, but it certainly lives up to it stylistically. Now, the band has a new LP coming out in May on Matador Records. Keep an eye out for it. I'm just loving how moody and dark and sort of depressive this track is. Give it a listen, especially if you love the Joy Divisions, okay? All right, next, Passages, Offenbarung. This is a pretty weird black metal dark ambient project. This is a track from the project's new LP Das Tor. Give it a listen. It's long. It is just pummeling. It's really hypnotic as well. It's a seductive track. I love how not only does it stick to that old black metal lo-fi sound, but it manages to use just the lightness of the lo-fi sound and the distortion of the lo-fi sound and repetition with the drums and the guitars to just make something that is mind-numbing and just sucks me into this really dark, blizzardy world. Next, Teen, Carolina. Awesome indie pop outfit, bit of progressive synth flavor in their music, bit of post-punk flavor in their music. They have a new EP on the way on Car Park Records. This is the title track from it. It's got a lot of flavor to it. They played this song during their live set that I caught at the Consequence of Sound showcase, which was really good. Liked hearing it in person, liked hearing it on this studio version of it. So I'm looking forward to that EP. Next, The Knife have a new track out, A Tooth for an Eye. And, oh man, it's bitchin'. I like it even more than the last track. I like the more sort of acoustic, natural sounding drums on this track. I think the song is a little more straightforward, a little less avant and out there, a little more sharp, concise. I don't want to say catchy, but it really kind of got me into the groove of the song a little bit faster. The previous track that they dropped, I was like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? This is weird. What's going on? Whereas this track, it just got me, seduced me right away. I was like, yes, yes, man. All right, next, Rustie has a new track out, Triadzz. It is a banger. So, if you like bangers, then give a listen to this track. It's very colorful, it's very flavorful, though it does hit hard and it does have a lot of bass. Like you would expect from Rustie, he brings those very rich, bright, golden, shiny synthesizers that made his Glass Swords album, forgot the title for a second, the Glass Swords album, so good, so enjoyable. Next, Young Fathers. They have a new LP coming out on the way on Anticon Records. Their track that they dropped before it, The Guide, it's good, give it a listen. It's a little more of a ballad, not so much straightforward throat cutting hip hop like some of their stuff from tape 1. It's more of a ballad, like I said, but it is sweet. It is pretty emotive, so give that a listen. Next, Wardruna, AnseR. These guys are a dark Nordic folk outfit, and their new LP is out now. That's what it looks like. And this track down here, AnseR, is pretty awesome. Okay, very deep, very sort of drony, very hypnotic, though there is a bit of black metal flavor, and that is not a surprise considering the bands that some of the members of this project have been in. A few black metal bands, sort of in the related artists under the belt. I think people who don't like black metal can enjoy this track because of how folky it is, because of how just primeval it feels. All right, next, Dillinger Escape Plan have a new track out called Prancer. New LP on the way, One of Us is the Killer. Now, if you like just metalcore mixed with math rock, I know that doesn't sound that good on paper. Sounds a little gimmicky. Sounds like something that might make you want to throw up. But this track is actually really good. They're taking those metal elements, they're taking those math elements, and they're taking some really heavy hitting distortion on the guitars and just making something really abrasive. I love the syncopation of the drums and the riffs, and I love that these guys can really rock an odd freaking groove. Okay, next, Willa. These guys are an experimental rock band from Italy, combining elements of lo-fi music, noise rock, as well as folk music, and you can stream their whole album in full on theneedledrop.com. Willa. It's a pretty interesting listen. Have a pretty eccentric female singer fronting the band as well. There's some definite personality there. And finally, for our last piece of the tracks segment, Sigur Ros has a new track out. Brennisteinn. Not even going to pronounce it, but a lot of people are hyping this track up. Not only because Sigur Ros is coming out with a new LP in just about a year's time from their last full-length album, which was pretty heavenly, and I liked it quite a bit. But this new track of theirs, people are digging on this track and people are hyping this track because it is going in a darker direction. Sigur Ros, going in a dark direction. And while maybe it's not the darkest thing I've ever heard, maybe not as dark as some people are making it out to be, because Jonsi's vocals on the track, really kind of keep it from going deep into the depths of hell. While it is noisy and is a little tortured, to kind of hear Jonsi's cherub voice calling out over the song does give it kind of a heavenly element. Not necessarily a bad thing, though. It is a pretty interesting track and most definitely moodier. And I think maybe a moodier record coming up soon this year might be a nice change of pace. So yes, I did dig on that track quite a bit. All right, let's get into the whole albums part of this thing. Kavinsky, Outrun. This guy is an electronic music producer, specifically in the range of French house music. And his early EPs, which were pretty good, struck around the time that this style of music was pretty popular, thanks to people like Justice, as well as Danger, Sebastian. But Kavinsky's approach to this style of music has a bit of an 80s chic on it, especially when it comes to the synthesizers that he typically lays on his tracks. A lot of the synths on this LP feel like they could have been lifted from an 80s slasher film or a sci-fi film, but the thing is, unfortunately, Kavinsky is not as proficient a producer as some of these other artists that I just mentioned in terms of hard-hitting beats, in terms of detail, in my opinion, and I just don't feel like this album struck while the iron was hot, unfortunately. An album like this should have been out at least 3 or 4 years ago. And the problem is made worse by some really, really weak vocal features on this thing too. Weak rapping, weak singing. I'm just not feeling this LP. Warm Soda, Someone for You. This is the new LP from a band that kind of rose like a phoenix out of the demise of the group Bare Wires, which was a garage rock, power pop outfit, and Warm Soda is pretty much the same. Though I would say they boil things down a little bit further just to the whole power pop shtick. The songs on this LP are straightforward, they're catchy, they're ear-wormy. I would say my one big issue with the album is that the production is not that diverse. It's a little flat, it's a little lo-fi, and it tends to get kind of old by the end of this very short LP. Still, there are some pop rock gems on this thing, specifically the title track. Give it a listen. Dan Friel, Total Folklore. You may know this guy as the ex-frontman, or is the band still together? Frontman, Parts and Labor. And it's a pretty oddly shaped album with a 13-minute long opener, as well as a bunch of strange interludes peppered throughout the rest of the album. And it's a group of electronic synth-strumentals, which are incredibly abrasive, distorted, harsh on the ears, but also kind of bright, melodic, and rich. I do like the fact that Dan enjoys noise. I do like that he is a knob twister. He has an ear for sound, but when it comes to melody and structuring a song, I do tend to feel like his melodies are either feeling very much like something I would hear in Parts and Labor, or are kind of like children's music inspired or something. They feel very childish, and not in like an insulting way, more like in a way where he's coming from a place of pure innocence when he writes his melodies. And I can't say that resonates with me particularly, but I think it will with some people, especially maybe people who are huge into Dan Deacon or something like that. If that does appeal to you. The new Active Estimating as Worthless EP, Circadian Tremors. These guys are a New York Baroque pop and folk outfit. Very lazy vocals, huge instrumentals, lots of horns, piano, strings. I reviewed a full length of theirs not too long ago. A lot of their stuff reminds me of Moldy Peaches as well as Smog. There are some very earnest lyrics throughout this EP as well. The only difference between this EP and their last full length, I would say, is that the instrumentation is a little more lush, a little more ambitious. I would say overall the recording is a little more solid too. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because for the Active Estimating as Worthless to come out with a series of tracks that are pretty much in the same vein on an EP as the tracks from their last LP is pretty nice, because the LP, it's good. The new Bilal LP, A Love Surreal. This guy is a singer, songwriter, specifically a neo-soul singer who has really colored some tracks that I love and projects that I love a lot. He appears on Clip's Hell Hath No Fury. He's worked with Common as well, The Roots too, and I absolutely love his voice on that Logos LP that I talked up a little while back. However, this is the first time I'm really trying to get into his solo stuff, and in listening to this new album, I'm hearing this sort of future funk soul fusion that reminds me of people like Prince as well as Erykah Badu. However, I think when he's left up to his own devices just by himself, especially when he goes into this sort of faux futuristic territory, his melodies are a little unadventurous and underwhelming. His lyrics, especially on tracks like West End Girl, are kind of cringeworthy. And while I do like this guy's voice, I think it's best in kind of smaller doses, because to hear him sort of multi-tracking his background vocals on top of his foreground vocals is really distracting and takes me out of the feel of the song. Unfortunately, I'm just not feeling this one. The new Derek Piotr album, Raj, hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. This is his sophomore full-length LP, I believe, and he is an experimental music artist, a noise music artist, and in comparison with other noise artists, his music isn't incredibly harsh. It's very spacious, but also kind of claustrophobic and dry as well. Not a lot of effects on the noises and the strange sounds and vocals that he incorporates into his tracks. It's all very straightforward, it's all very in your face, at times sort of overbearing and mind-numbing. I feel like he has a really interesting ear for sound, but I would love to hear him just use effects more to kind of color things up a little bit, because with how plain and sort of dry, like I said, some of the sounds he uses can be, things can at times come off sort of samey with where they sit in the mix and how they feel. But still, if you're looking for something that is noisy and sort of methodical and very sort of cerebral, give this a listen. And the new Kilo Kish mixtape, K+. This is her debut mixtape, but I first heard of her on the internet album Purple Naked Ladies via a vocal contribution, which is a pretty awesome early appearance to have in the music industry, and she has done it even bigger on her new tape over here with appearances from Earl, Flatbush Zombies, production from some pretty big names as well. However, I wish Kish was as good at rapping, singing, and songwriting as she is networking, because a lot of the songs on this LP do not stick. I mean, it's very pastel, shallow hip-hop that has no real guts to it, no real passion to it. It just sort of seems like, you know, she's making music because she thinks it might be fun for right now. If you've heard Kitty Pryde, then you've basically heard every single thing that Kish has to offer on this tape. But I would argue that Kitty Pryde is more interesting, has more clever lyricism, and is a little bit more bubbly and fun. This, instead, is just really sort of fashionable and flat. And yeah, that's it. Those are all the albums that I want to talk about in this segment. Thank you for watching. Anthony Fantano. Quickies forever.